So last time I forgot to do a question of the video. Amazing! I start doing this and literally 2 videos later I already forgot it. So I suppose the question for this video is, do you already have the figures I'm about to list, and if not, did I convince you to get any of them? Also, the community has spoken. Overwhelmingly, with 77% of the damn vote, you guys want my temporarily reduced upload schedule to be on Wednesdays and Fridays. So this will be the last video of the week. Remember that with me doing 4 fewer videos a month, and therefore getting 1/3 fewer views a week, that evil YouTube robot is going to try to banish me to the Shadow Realm. So these videos are going to need your interactions and support more than ever. Please, like or dislike the videos, I don't care which, and share them with whomever you can. Post them on other people's Discords. Print out every frame of these and mail them by hand to George Lucas. Look, if you don't know anyone who'd care, just thank you for being here anyways. Welcome to the second and final video of the week of recommends. So the first of these was me recommending all of my highest tier picks. The figures that I think no matter who you are, you will love, doesn't matter what kind of collection you keep. Those were my recommendations that, as far as I'm concerned, don't need caveats, don't need qualifications. Someone asks me what they should get, and I tell them, buy these. I don't care what your collection is like, buy these. Because I am that confident that they are that good. But I kind of used them all. They have been recommended. So, this is going to be the lesser tier of recommends. That's not to say that any of these are bad, but these are the figures that I'm not 100% sure, positive beyond all doubt, that will be universally loved by whoever gets them. Basically, this is a list of good to great figures that there is a chance people might not care for. However, for most of you, I think you will love these. But really the difference here is that my confidence is not as high with this set, so I will do my hardest to not lead you astray, but people need more Christmas recommendations. This time, I'm going to try to keep it to recommendations you still have some hope of finding. Like maybe you walk into an incredibly slow operating store and you can just find all of these on its shelves. So, as much as I'd like to recommend stuff like Generations RC, the only place you can find that thing is like on eBay for $80 or more. So, first off, for Christmas, buy for someone else, buy for yourself, or convince someone to buy for you an 86 Sharkticon. What can I say? This guy is a little micro masterpiece. He's not as easily recommended as the Wreck-Gar from the same wave because he doesn't have a waist swivel or joints that other figures don't tend to have, but what can I say? He looks great, he feels great, he poses really well for a figure without a waist swivel. Weirdly enough, after sitting by himself on a shelf for a while, I found that his lower jaw has massively loosened up. Don't know how that works. This kind of has 2 variations of his robot mode. You can either mount his back a little higher by pegging his fin into the tail hole on his upper back. It's more secure like this, but it's a little gappy, and it gives him a back hump. Drop it down past that, and this isn't very secure, but I think it looks a lot more cohesive. Transformation on this guy is pretty fun. To anyone who bought the Trigger Happy on my recommendation and had one of these guys already, do you see what I mean by this shares a strange amount in common with that thing? Also, to be clear, there's a misconception going around that Trigger Happy and Slug Slinger are retools of the same figure. This could not be further from the truth. They have some shared engineering, which is also a term that people seem to have some misconceptions about. Shared engineering means they share some engineering, some of the exact same parts. All that means to say is that Slug Slinger and Misfire have the same legs. Every other part has precisely 0 relation to each other. Don't go buying a Slug Slinger and thinking that you are getting anywhere near the same experience as a Misfire. Slug Slinger is not 1/100th as good as Misfire. Slug Slinger's transformation honestly kind of sucks. Misfire's is awesome. That might be the heftiest tangent I've ever gone off on. All of that had nothing to do with this video. Anyways, transformation, fun. Alt mode grade 2. Nice and posable, relatively accurate to the source material, only missing a few details. It's a good scale for what it's supposed to be, well painted. My only problem is that the lower jaw has that gaping hole in it. But this is a solid recommend from me. Next up, get Kingdom Soundwave for Christmas from me or someone else. The winners of the contest have already been chosen. I'm just waiting till Christmas to announce them. This is for 2 reasons. 1, if you get a Soundwave for Christmas from a source other than me, you can tell me to send it to someone else since you won't need to. Though if you do want the signature, we can figure something out. And 2, Christmas. If you are one of the winners, I will contact you through YouTube so I can get your email so I can request your address in a confidential manner. If you are a minor, please involve your parents. You should never send someone on the internet your address without adult supervision. If they aren't comfortable with me sending it directly to your house, I could send it to a P.O. box or a relative's house. That had nothing to do with this video too. I'm great at this. What is there to say? Look at it! Look at it! It's perfect! It looks better than the Earthrise Netflix versions with a cleaner sculpt and better proportions, though the head may be a little teeny. The transformation on this is way better than on the Earthrise figure, let me tell you what. That thing is such a faff, but this just does what it needs to do. And the end result looks way better too. It's not all that weird bumpy unevenness that results from the ER's jacked up sculpt. He comes with 3 great accessories, including a tiny laser beak in tape form. I mean, what more could you want for $10? Next up, this Christmas you should acquire a Kingdom Inferno, one of the few Autobots that have been on any of these recommendation lists. What can I say? The Autobots tend to get way more figures, but when the Decepticons are allowed to have some new molds, they tend to be great ones. This fixes every problem the original mold had. It's everything the grapple should have been. It's made of nicer materials, it's painted better, it looks cooler. Despite it being the exact same transformation, it's way more fun, and crucially, this thing isn't brittle. The plastic is both sturdier and they removed the weak points of the figure. This thing should not be this similar and at the same time so much better. It should be basically impossible, but while Grapple is a figure that puts me to sleep, Inferno is like a fistful of sugar and a gallon of caffeine. I should not be able to find figures this nearly identical elicit such wildly different responses from me. The only problem I have with this thing is that the alt mode ladder is kind of lame and confusing. It just worked better as a crane. Next up, for Christmas, you should get a little something Spinister. Or Rotorstorm, I don't care which. They are the same, Rotorstorm just has more fun colors. This is an interesting and different Heliformer. I mean, some of that is weird bullshit where he has two cockpits for some reason, resulting in bell bottoms. I sincerely don't know why he didn't just have one that splits in half. He has landing gear on the front one, which I think should have been a gun considering he rests just fine on the center cockpit without it. Outside of the goofy bell bottoms, he cuts a pretty striking silhouette with a cool and unique identity. I think it would have been even cooler if he had the IDW head, and I will be mad till my grave that he and Wheeljack didn't win the versus 2-pack vote. But at least he still ended up with a pretty cool figure. Transformation on this isn't great. It's very different, and it could have been quite interesting, but getting the legs to cooperate is kind of really frustrating. The way you have to spin parts independently from each other to get them to sit properly is a confusing, unmemorable, and irritating annoyance. But that's a pretty good attack helicopter. It's kind of extraordinarily similar to the real Apache. The only thing making it at all space-like is the underside cockpit, which I'm fairly certain isn't supposed to actually exist. It's just a faux-forming piece you are supposed to pretend isn't there. Good helicopter, good robot mode, above average posing with an interesting, if trying, transformation. Solid recommend. Speaking of interesting and different heliformers, under the tree you should hopefully find a helicopter dropkick. From Apache to a Cobra. Or is this a Viper? Either way, this is a really interesting figure. It's kind of really small for a deluxe, and the posability on it is pretty good, though strange in some places. To be fair, it is extremely kibble heavy, but boy, for you people who don't really care for G1, this really doesn't look like G1. This thing has its flaws, namely the fact that it doesn't want to hold together at all. Tons of parts just want to separate themselves and go back to vehicle mode, because this is a figure that just really wants to be a helicopter and nothing else. But I am recommending this on the strength of the transformation. This is like a Titan's Return Cup on crack. One of the first figures that can trace its lineage back to that old codger. Though, it is a bit reductive to say that this is a descendant of that thing. Since this is so different in every other way than the lower legs, you'd never call it that if it weren't such a unique process. It's a completely distinct step that when you hit it, you always know where it came from, but nothing else is even reminiscent of it. Or everything else is, and that makes it different, as the arms kind of weirdly work in an extraordinarily similar way as the legs. So, it's almost like they took two cups, cut them in half, and glued them together crotch to crotch. What a nightmare. More than any other figure on this list, this is a flawed one, but I still think one worth checking out. Lastly, and probably most difficult of any of these to get, hard to find even when it was freshly out, you need to get a Commander Modesty. Honestly, Skylynx has some pretty Christmassy colors. Blue, red, and gold for the holiday, and white for the snow. The only thing it's missing is green. This is a pretty great figure. It's not quite the equal of Skyfire because this has hella tolerance issues. Just so many joints and connections on this are way too loose. I have never heard a single person say that their Skylynx was devoid of looseness issues. It also has some limited articulation in places. But I mean, look at this. Is it somehow not the coolest thing you've ever seen in your life? I mean, it could stand to look a little more aggressive, but it's a Transformers dragon that splits into a seagull and a kitten-sized cat. This is an awesome set of options. Though, I wish the connection between the two halves was a lot more sturdy, and that connecting them was less of a pain in the ass. Plus, honestly, this could stand to be a lot bigger. Grimlock in the show was about as big as one of Skylynx's feet.
Grimlock know what he does!
This probably should have been a Titans-class figure. Sure, this wasn't as big as Metroplex or Trypticon, but he was for sure as big as Omega Supreme. Just take a minute to think how cool it would have been for this to be 4 times the size. It'd be like a dog. If you don't want that, I don't know that we could be friends. Transformation on this is really very basic. Cat legs lay along the side, and you just kind of squish down the bird half. And you wind up with a block, and a pretty nice shuttle that's basically the exact same size as the MMC Blastoff. His lower half really could have stood to be something, anything. I guess it's supposed to be that giant mobile platform that takes shuttles to where they're supposed to launch, but it looks like nothing. I think that this should have been reimagined to be something like a giant rover, or a sandcrawler. As it is, it kind of sucks without the shuttle attached. The shuttle, on the other hand, looks great, very sleek. Not quite like any shuttle you've seen before, cool on its own though. Then it's got the base mode, and no one cares! This is an immensely fun figure, but I can't escape the feeling that it should have been more. Well, that's it for the recommendations for this year. Between all those, you should have an idea what to pick up, be it for yourself or someone else for Christmas. I hope you have a great holiday, even if you don't celebrate it, and I'll see you next Wednesday. And that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know you know what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.